Sofia discovers a swirling velvet portal in the castle's forgotten east wing, and touching it was the worst mistake she'd ever make. The fabric of reality itself starts to unravel, pulling everyone into a vortex where solid ground becomes liquid shadow, and the air tastes like crushed violets. This isn't just another magical mishap. This is something far worse. It starts innocently enough. Amber's redecorating again, insisting the castle needs sophisticated elegance instead of the current, outdated charm. She finds an antique tapestry rolled up in storage, deep purple velvet embroidered with silver spirals that seem to shift when you're not looking directly at them. Beautiful, she thinks. Perfect for the main hall. The moment the tapestry unfurls completely, everything changes. The spiral pattern begins rotating. Not the threads themselves, but the space around them, like watching water circle a drain, except the water is air and stone and light. Sofia notices first because she's closest, reaching out instinctively to steady the fabric as it trembles against the wall. Her fingers brush the center spiral. The world inverts. Gravity stops making sense. The floor ripples like disturbed water, sending waves of purple energy cascading through the throne room. James draws his sword, but the blade bends, curves, wraps around his arm like a snake made of steel. Clover tries to hop away, but each jump sends him spinning through the air in slow spirals, his screams stretching into elongated echoes. Cedric recognizes the magic immediately, his face going pale. Ancient weaving spells, he explains frantically, designed to trap consciousness itself inside endless loops of dream logic. The tapestry isn't decorative, it's a prison, and Sofia just opened the door. The vortex expands outward in concentric circles, each ring spinning at different speeds, different directions. Step into one ring, and you're moving forward. Cross into the next, and suddenly, you're walking backward through time, watching your own footprints disappear as you create them. The castle walls begin folding inward like origami, corners becoming curves, straight lines bending into impossible geometry. Miranda and Roland try to reach their children, but the distance between them stretches. 5 steps become 50, become 500. They're running in place while the floor scrolls beneath them, like an infinite treadmill made of polished marble and crushed dreams. What makes this particular trap so vicious isn't just the spatial distortion. It's the velvet itself, woven with threads that respond to emotional energy. Fear makes the spirals tighten. Panic accelerates the spin. The more desperately you try to escape, the faster you're pulled toward the center, where the original weavers placed something no one was ever meant to find. Sofia realizes this, watching Amber struggle, her sisters pushing against the current, fighting with everything she has, and it's making things exponentially worse. The velvet feeds on resistance, growing stronger with each act of defiance. You can't fight a whirlpool by swimming against it. You have to understand the current first, but understanding requires staying calm while reality disassembles itself around you. James manages to plant his feet, using his shield as an anchor against the pull. It works for approximately 4 seconds before the shield itself begins unraveling, individual atoms separating and reorganizing into a spiral pattern that matches the tapestry. He's forced to drop it, watching his family crest dissolve into component colors that swirl away into the vortex like paint in water. Minimus attempts an aerial approach, diving from the upper gallery with Mia clutching his mane. The air itself has turned treacherous, though, thick in some places and thin in others, creating pockets of resistance that flip them sideways mid-flight. They tumble through 3 separate gravity wells before crash landing in what used to be the banquet hall, but is now a vertical corridor where the floor might be a wall, might be the ceiling. Cedric tries counterspells, but his magic just gets absorbed, twisted, repurposed. Every incantation he casts becomes part of the tapestry's pattern, adding new spirals, new dimensions of trap. Fire spells turn into ribbons of flame that weave themselves into the velvet border. Ice magic crystallizes into fractal patterns that mirror the original design. He's not fighting the trap. He's feeding it. The worst part? They can see the outside world through gaps in the spirals. Normal reality continues just beyond reach. Bailiwick walks past, carrying fresh linens, completely oblivious to the disaster unfolding 3 feet away. The gap between dimensions is razor thin, but absolutely impassable. They're trapped in a pocket reality that occupies the same space as the castle, but exists on a completely different plane. Sofia notices something crucial, though. The spirals aren't random. They're following a pattern, a rhythm, like music translated into motion and space. Every 7th rotation, there's a pause, a fraction of a second where the pull lessens, where the geometry stabilizes just enough that you could potentially move with the current instead of against it. She watches 3 cycles to confirm. Yes, definitely a pattern. The ancient weavers built in a navigation system, probably so they could move through their own trap without getting caught, which means there's a way through. Not out, necessarily, but deeper in, toward whatever sits at the vortex's heart. Clover lands beside her, dizzy and disoriented. He's been through 4 separate loops, experienced the same 10 seconds from 5 different angles, and he's pretty sure he just watched himself from tomorrow, warning himself from yesterday about something that hasn't happened yet. His brain feels like scrambled eggs, but he trusts Sofia completely. She explains quickly. They need to stop fighting, start flowing, move with the spirals during those brief pauses. Let the current carry them inward instead of exhausting themselves, swimming against impossible tides. It's counterintuitive, terrifying, requires absolute faith that moving toward the danger is somehow safer than running away. James overhears, nods understanding despite every instinct screaming otherwise. Amber takes longer to convince because surrendering control goes against her entire personality. But watching her magic tiara get absorbed into the tapestry finally breaks through her resistance. Cedric calculates trajectories, timing, velocity. If they're going to ride these spirals inward, they need perfect synchronization. The next pause approaches. Sofia counts down. 3, 2, 1. They jump together into the current, letting the velvet vortex pull them deeper into its heart, where something ancient and hungry has been waiting for centuries. The spiral consumes them completely, and for 3 seconds, they experience every moment of their lives simultaneously. Birth and breakfast and tomorrow's sunset, all happening at once in a nauseating temporal smoothie that makes linear time feel like a polite suggestion rather than an actual law of physics. Then it spits them out. They land hard on something that might be floor or might be crystallized, time itself. The surface ripples like water, but holds weight like stone. Purple light emanates from everywhere and nowhere. The geometry here doesn't just bend the rules, it's playing an entirely different game with pieces that shouldn't exist. Walls curve inward and outward at the same time. Distances lie. What looks 3 feet away requires 20 steps to reach, while that archway across the impossible chamber is somehow close enough to touch. At the vortex's center sits the source. Not a loom exactly, though it serves that function. More like a reality engine disguised as furniture. Threads of pure possibility weave themselves through mechanisms that predate the kingdom by centuries. Each thread represents a choice unmade, a path untaken, a version of events that could have happened but didn't. The tapestry they saw upstairs, just the exhaust, the byproduct of this thing's actual function. It's been weaving alternate timelines this entire time, creating pocket dimensions from discarded possibilities and feeding on them. That's the crucial detail Sofia pieces together, watching the threads disappear into a central void. It creates realities, then consumes them. Perpetual motion powered by entropy and what-ifs. Brilliant design, really, if you ignore the whole trapping people forever aspect. Clover spots something worse, though. Shadows moving inside the threads. Not shadows exactly. People, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, trapped in those alternate timelines. Previous victims who stumbled into the tapestries pull over the years. She sees a knight from 3 dynasties ago, still swinging his sword at enemies that stopped existing when his timeline got absorbed. A court jester, frozen mid-laugh, at a joke no one else remembers. An entire royal family having dinner in a hall that was demolished centuries back. They're not dead. That would be kinder. They're stuck in loops, living fragments of moments that never quite finished happening. The loom preserves them like insects in amber, keeping them fresh for whatever purpose drove its creation. James touches one thread and immediately sees through that person's eyes. He's simultaneously himself and a stable boy from 200 years past, experiencing both moments with equal clarity until Sofia yanks him back. Cedric examines the mechanisms with professional fascination, despite their dire circumstances. The magical engineering here surpasses anything in his reference library. Whoever built this understood reality's source code, could edit it like text on a page. The loom doesn't just create illusions or temporary effects. It actually splits timelines, forks existence itself, then harvests the branches it doesn't need. But why? What's the endgame? Sofia follows the thread void's destination and discovers something that makes her stomach drop. The consumed timelines are being woven into something new, a massive pattern taking shape behind the loom, hidden in dimensional shadows. She can only see fragments, but they suggest something enormous, a tapestry large enough to wrap the entire kingdom, maybe large enough to wrap reality itself. The ancient weavers weren't creating art. They were building a replacement, a new universe woven from discarded possibilities, powered by trapped moments and stolen choices. And it's almost complete. Maybe another century of feeding, another few hundred victims, and it'll have enough material to finish its work. Then what? Does this reality get discarded too, woven into someone else's cosmic tapestry? Amber finds the off switch, or what she assumes is an off switch, a crystal spindle at the loom's base, pulsing with absorbed energy. She reaches for it, but Cedric grabs her wrist. Stopping the loom might release everyone trapped in the threads, or it might collapse all those pocket dimensions instantly, erasing those people from existence retroactively. They'd never have been trapped because the trap would never have existed, which creates a paradox that could unravel causality itself. On the other hand, leaving it running means it keeps collecting victims, keeps building toward whatever apocalyptic endgame its creators intended. Classic magical dilemma. The safe option leads to guaranteed slow disaster. The risky option might save everyone or erase them from history. No pressure. Sofia considers their options while the vortex churns overhead, probably already reaching for new victims upstairs. She thinks about all those people in the threads, living their loops forever. The stable boy James touched, the jester, the ancient royal family. They deserve release, even if it means they never existed to begin with. Paradox seems preferable to eternal imprisonment. But there's a third option, crystallizing in her mind. What if they don't destroy the loom? What if they reprogram it? The mechanisms are incredibly complex, but follow logical patterns. Magic, this sophisticated, has to be systematic, rule-based. If Cedric can decode the weaving algorithm, maybe they can reverse it. Make it release instead of capture. Unweave the tapestry instead of feeding it, she explains quickly. Cedric's eyes light up with possibilities and terror, because yes, theoretically possible, but one mistake means they become part of the pattern themselves. They'd need to rewrite the loom's fundamental purpose while it's actively running, like reprogramming a computer that's currently trying to delete you. James volunteers immediately, because of course he does. Someone needs to manually adjust the crystal matrices, while Cedric recites the counterweaving incantation. It'll require standing directly in the thread stream, resisting the pull, while performing delicate adjustments to mechanisms that could erase him if he touches the wrong component. Amber surprises everyone by volunteering second. Not because she's brave, necessarily, but because her tiara, though partially absorbed, still maintains connection to the loom's magic. She can feel its rhythm, sense which crystals need adjusting. The plan is insane. The margin for error is microscopic, but staying trapped forever is unacceptable, and destroying everything feels wrong. So they're going to attempt magical surgery on a reality engine while standing inside its digestive system. Clover summarizes it perfectly. Absolutely bonkers, completely necessary, probably fatal. His favorite kind of plan. James positions himself at the crystal array, while Amber takes the secondary control node. Cedric stands at the loom's heart, spell components arranged in precise geometric patterns around him. Sofia coordinates because someone needs to see the whole picture, while everyone else focuses on not being erased. Clover guards the entrance in case the castle upstairs decides to interfere. The counterweaving begins with Cedric's incantation, ancient syllables that taste like backwards time and inverted physics. The loom shudders, confused by instructions that contradict its core programming. Threads start writhing, searching for the source of this rebellion. James adjusts the first crystal matrix, rotating it exactly 47 degrees counterclockwise. The angle matters. 46 degrees does nothing. 48 degrees creates feedback that could liquefy his skeleton. 47 causes the loom to hiccup, stuttering in its endless weaving. Amber feels the rhythm shift through her tiara connection. She twists her assigned crystal in response, matching the new frequency. The loom protests harder now, threads whipping violently. One grazes Cedric's shoulder, and suddenly, he's living his third birthday, again, complete with sensory detail and emotional context. He shakes it off, continues the incantation, but his voice wavers. Those memories felt more real than standing here. Sofia watches the pattern emerge. The loom isn't just a machine. It's alive in the way equations are alive. Consciousness built from pure function rather than biology. It doesn't want to die. It's fighting back with everything it has, trying to weave them into submission before they can finish the reversal. A thread shoots toward James. He dodges, but it catches his sleeve. And suddenly, he's 7 years old, falling off his first horse. The fear is absolute and immediate. He forces himself back to present, adjusts another crystal. His hands are shaking. The vortex overhead intensifies, pulling harder. Loose objects in the chamber start floating upward. Sofia grabs a support beam as her feet leave the ground. She weighs options quickly. If they abort now, the loom resets, and they've accomplished nothing except making it angry. If they continue, they might succeed, or they might get absorbed into the tapestry permanently. Not great choices either way. But James and Amber are committed. Cedric's halfway through the incantation, and stopping mid-spell could cause magical backlash that makes getting absorbed look pleasant. So Sofia holds tight and trusts the plan because that's all she can do. Sometimes, leadership means choosing to believe in people even when the odds are catastrophic. Another crystal rotation, another frequency adjustment. The loom's rhythm breaks completely, skipping beats like a damaged heart. Threads start unraveling at the edges, not the recent captures, the old ones. Ancient patterns loosening after centuries of perfect tension. A face appears in the threads, briefly, the stable boy, confused but aware, then gone again as the thread reweaves itself. Cedric reaches the incantation's crescendo. The syllables burn coming out, each one costing something he won't get back. Maybe memories, maybe years, maybe pieces of his magical core. But the loom responds, its fundamental nature beginning to invert. Instead of pulling things in, it starts pushing them out. Gently at first, then with increasing force. The first release is a small one. A mouse that got caught last week materializes on the floor, disoriented but intact. Then a bird, then a servant who vanished 3 days ago, suddenly standing there holding the teacup she'd been carrying when the vortex took her. She looks around, utterly baffled, and Sofia quickly directs her toward the exit before things get weirder. James makes the final crystal adjustment. The angle has to be perfect. Too far, and the loom inverts completely, becoming a reality ejection system that could spit out the entire castle. Not far enough, and it stays locked in capture mode. He closes his eyes, feels the resonance through his sword, which is somehow still connected to this mess, and turns the crystal to precisely the right position. The loom screams, not sound exactly, more like the feeling of reality itself, protesting fundamental change. The threads explode outward in all directions, releasing their prisoners in a cascade of confused people spanning multiple centuries. The jester appears mid-laugh from a joke told 400 years ago. The royal family materializes in their ancient court dress, immediately demanding to know who's responsible for this outrage. The stable boy drops from above, landing hard but alive. Amber's tiara shatters. The connection was too strong, and the backlash too violent. She stumbles backward, but stays conscious, which is impressive, considering her brain just experienced magical feedback equivalent to grabbing a live wire. The vortex collapses inward, imploding rather than exploding, and the loom goes dark, not destroyed, dormant, waiting for someone foolish enough to reactivate it centuries from now. Cedric finishes the incantation and immediately collapses. Sofia catches him before he hits the ground. He's breathing, but unconscious. Magical exhaustion written across every cell. James helps Amber to her feet. She's missing her tiara, but otherwise intact. They've done it. Somehow, impossibly, they've actually done it. The chamber fills with confused people from across time. Most don't understand what happened. Some demand explanations. A few just sit down and cry with relief. Clover starts herding them toward the exit because someone needs to manage this chaos, and the humans are all too traumatized to function properly. Sofia looks at the silent loom, its crystals dim, its threads hanging limp. The ancient weavers built something that almost ate reality. They stopped it, reversed it, saved everyone trapped inside. But the loom still exists, still waits. Some problems don't get solved. They just get postponed. She makes a mental note to have this chamber sealed, permanently, with multiple magical barriers and possibly concrete. They climb back toward the castle proper, supporting Cedric between them, followed by a confused parade of temporal refugees who'll need extensive explanation and probably therapy. The castle returns to something resembling normal over the following hours. Though normal is relative when you're explaining to a 400-year-old jester why his entire kingdom no longer exists. Bailiwick handles the logistics with admirable efficiency, finding rooms for the displaced, arranging meals, pretending this is just another Tuesday in a castle that routinely defies physics. Sofia watches from the repaired throne room as workers seal the East Wing entrance with stone and steel, and every protective spell Cedric can manage once he's conscious again. The tapestry gets burned, not stored, not studied, just destroyed completely, because some knowledge is too dangerous to preserve. The ashes scatter in wind that feels oddly relieved, like reality itself is grateful for one less existential threat. She thinks about those trapped people, living their loops for centuries, about how close they all came to joining them, about the loom still sitting in darkness below, dormant, but not dead. There's a lesson here about curiosity and consequences, about how the most beautiful things sometimes hide the worst intentions. Amber apologizes, which is rare enough to be noteworthy. She just wanted the castle to look sophisticated. Instead, she almost fed everyone to a reality-eating textile nightmare. Sofia forgives her, because what else can you do when family nearly destroys existence through interior decorating? You forgive them, and you move on, and you maybe establish some rules about antique shopping. The velvet vortex is gone, but its memory lingers. Sometimes, Sofia catches herself watching spiral patterns too closely, waiting for them to move. Sometimes, she feels the pull of something that isn't there anymore. The mind remembers trauma, even after the threat disappears. That's normal. That's healing. The castle stands. Reality holds. Everyone's safe for now. Some victories don't feel triumphant. They feel like narrow escapes from disasters you barely understand. But you take them anyway, because the alternative is being woven into someone else's cosmic tapestry, living the same moment forever, while the universe moves on without you. Clover finds her later, brings her a carrot, because that's his solution to most problems. They sit together, watching sunset, paint the sky in colors that definitely aren't trying to trap anyone. Just regular light doing regular things. It's beautiful in a way that doesn't require magic or danger or nearly destroying reality. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes that's everything.